Rory. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing very well, man. I am. I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, I am too. I'm just trying to find the actual suggestion out here.
It was a
It's
little while
from
back, wasn't it, this one?
yeah, it was from Christian Ista or Ista. I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name. And I was just looking for. I couldn't find it in my email or on Twitter, but it's he. It was his suggestion initially, and the suggestion goes something like this. Let's go. There we go. Let's just open up our good old object initializer test. And what is requested is the ability to, let's see, it's interesting, the resources of this part a little bit better, right? So if I'm down here on Orange Brush here, and I want to go into its type, Solid Brush, what I want to do is essentially do it right from here with a keystroke. So being here on a reference and get to that type and go right to it. So that's what we're going to build. And
So from the variable, not to the variable declaration, but to the definition of the type of the
right.
variable.
It's as if we kind of did this, a jump to reference and then a jump to reference and then go to definition, I mean, for both of those. I can't think the equivalent of this. Now, I'm not sure if Christian's actually in here or not. I see like a bunch of people. Christian, if you're there, one of the questions that I had, it looks like I'm not seeing the list there.
No,
But at any rate, one of the questions I had was whether do we want to go here? Do you want to see a metadata of this, or would you rather go to the object browser? So that's kind of the idea there.
Well, if it helps at all, there is no option in VB.NET to go to the code view of that. That does not exist as far as I'm aware. So we only have the object browser.
So if you come in here, right-click and say go to definition, in VB, you go to the object browser.
That's correct.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, interesting. All right, well, we'll at least start it there. We'll get to, well, basically it's as if you're here, and then you go jump in to there. And then when you hit escape, you'll get back to there, not up here. So that's kind of what we're going to do. Okay, so let's go into DevExpress. We're going to choose new plugin. We'll call this CR underscore for CodeRush. We're going to call this jump to type, I think. That's what we'll call it. And W C# standard plugin. And I think I've talked about these once before. Almost every time I'm here, I just come in and click OK on this. But there are some options here. These are advanced options for special kinds of plugins. You can create a system plugin, which is loaded before all the others, or you can choose to load it anyway. Now, you like this option, right? This is how you develop.
Yes and no. Up until about a week ago, I would have used that option every time. Because it just makes the debugging process so much smoother.
Yeah.
But as I sort of alluded to last week, we have some experimental stuff in some of the daily builds that make it unnecessary to use that from my perspective.
So
I've stopped using that.
How is it you get access to these experimental builds and I'm still working with the same version everybody else has? What's going on with that? We will address that question later. I'm going to click OK. Because I don't like answers that start with I'm special and you're not. So no, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. All right. Here we go. All right. So what I want to do is I want to drop a navigation provider on you. What's the magic secret to close everything?
It's the / on the numeric keypad.
Okay. That's so intuitive. All right, but there it is. All right. Thanks. And I want a navigation provider. If you don't see it in the list, by the way, you can right-click, say Choose Items, and then find it from the list to add it. But I want a navigation provider, and we can bind this to a shortcut later in the Shortcut Options dialog. Yep. I could have also chosen an action, but the nice thing about the navigation provider is it'll just show up in the navigation menu, and so it can be a little easier to discover. And let's set some properties for the navigation provider.
So the navigation provider is essentially the corresponding component here to the refactoring provider or the code provider. So exactly the same basic logic, same kind of menu comes up when you're using it. And as Mark said before, if you if you bind your shortcuts correctly, you can pick an individual item from said menu and execute it directly without ever going to the menu at all.
Got it. So there's the description of it. So it's a declaration of the type of the reference at the caret. So we get the reference, then we find its type, and we go to that declaration. Call this nav jump type. And we'll double click on apply. We'll come back and we'll double click on jump availability. And I don't know, what do you think? Do you want to run? Sure, why not? Set breakpoints. I don't know, Rory. I'm just, feel like I'm the beach bum of plugin developers,
Whatever do you mean?
I'm just like hanging out on the beach. All right. Here we go.
It's a very chilling kind of exercise, I know that. I sit down of an evening and relax, build some plugins,
All right, so what we want to do is we're going to look at our check availability, and we basically want to see if the thing we're working with has a declaration. And I should bring up, I wonder if I should bring up a notepad. We're just going to throw a couple things out here. So we're looking at two things of interest. Well, I'm actually making three. I element, which we've seen before, which is our low-level representation of an element of code. We also have, above that, we have I type declaration, or I type element actually is what it is. And this is like going to be a low-level representation of class struct or interface. Okay? And then you also have something called I has type, which you can apply to I elements, and if you get something from this, then you can get to their type.
So is that like a method would return a type of some description, but
yeah,
would not have.
So yeah, you'll see this in the code, but these are kind of the things to look for right here. So here's our apply breakpoint. Let's go back over into our code. Let's come right here. Let's hit Control-N to bring up the menu, and that should get us here in the check availability. So inside here we've got some EA event args coming in. This check content availability event args. And inside there we're going to have some stuff that we can work with. Code active is the active language element which corresponds to code, and that's what we want to work with. We can also work with element, code active is getting us the element inside of. We'll also get it inside of ISP code nuggets as well, which is useful rather than the element which gives us the actual HTML element. So we'll use code active, and we will we'll declare a new local variable for that, and I'll just call this element. That, copy the clipboard, and next, get out of there. It's null, and then we can now check to see if this thing has a declaration, and we'll declare that, and this is going to be its declaration. Copy that to clipboard, and next, get out, and then, well, actually, let's see. What do we want to do here? Let's just step through this and see what we have a little bit so far. So active element, it's the orange brush there. You can see it right there. Get declaration on that comes in. There's the solid brush right there. And so what we want to do is we want to say, if we're null, we want to get out. The other thing is, let's do this. We want to see declaration as I type element. Let's see what comes back from there. And we'll just step through there. What do we get? Oh, so declaration is not a type element. Let's see if we can do declaration as I has type. Let's see what we get here. And now we actually have something now here that we have I has type. And now that we have that, we can come in and say, what is its type? Okay, come on, there we go, right there, that's what I want, type. And let's go there, and then you can see an I-type reference expression. And let's just run that. Let's do this. If null, and we can come in here, and now let's run that. And there you can see now we've made our way into solid brush. Okay, so we could get if the declaration was in fact a type element, that might be interesting to us as well. But at least at this point, right? If we're not null, we can come in here and we can say ea.available equals not null. Type is not equal to null. For anybody who might be new to CodeRush out here, what I did is I just copied that to clipboard. And I came down here and used the tape template for not null and paste what's in on the clipboard. And so then we're available. So let's come down here and let's just run that so we get the availability check. And now if we just clear that breakpoint, and then we just appeared for a moment, let's bring it up again. Now you can see jump to type declaration. So there is the piece that we added. It gets the text for type declaration from our properties over here. That's where it gets the text and the provider name. So this is jump to type declaration. Okay, and so now let's apply it. So now hit enter, and now we're over here on the apply side of things. Let's close this down. Oops, this is up right here. Let's run it a second because I want to get this off the screen. If I'm fast enough, and when I select it, Control and enter, and I get up, oh, the shadow was just drawn. Let's try one more time. Get it. And enter. There we go. So now I can work without that stuff on the screen. And if you've got a larger monitor, not a big deal. If you're working on 2 monitors, not a big deal. But we're working on kind of a small resolution for the video. So I've done this before, right, where you see that hint come out and block, and so I come out and I go back and I just select it very quickly before the hint has a chance to pop out. So, okay, so now we're looking at the apply. The apply kind of looks similar to what we've done so far, right? We kind of want to go in here, grab some code in here like this, and we can refactor this in a little bit. In fact, let's kind of just grab this code and see what we're kind of working with over here. And just kind of step through it back here. Well, we don't have any VA available down there, so that doesn't make sense. So let's step through this. So we've got, again, the orange brush, we get the declaration of it. So this is the reference in the code where that I'm on, right? This actual element is just orange brush.
That's you doing something with the orange brush.
Right. It's an element reference expression. Yeah. Sure. And you know, I've talked about this before. Let's bring up Notepad again one more time, and we're just going to look at these pieces here. So these are the low-level pieces. We also have high-level pieces. High-level elements, I guess I'll call them. And one of those is an element reference expression. The high-level elements, those exist in the open documents.
These are kind of like light versus fully fleshed out, so you've got a lot more properties and information on them.
And the low-level elements exist in closed documents and reference assemblies. Okay, and so these don't have as many properties as the high-level elements, and for each high-level element, there is a low-level element that begins with, or at least an interface for it that is implemented by the low-level element that begins with the letter I. So so if you have an I element reference expression, that means we're going to also have an I element reference expression that the low-level element will implement. And the high-level elements are essentially supersets of the low-level elements. Normally by now I bring up the expression lab, which I haven't done yet. Let's bring that up. I also want to come in here and we'll search for GX core and expression lab, like that, and let me get there. Oops, that was not the main link, but let's see if he's got the links here. This gets to Skorkin site, and I'm not seeing the domain to download it immediately here. Let's go back over here. There it is. So the DevExpress link here. Oh, where's the download? Oh, come on. That's not it.
It's been a very long time since I've downloaded this. I wouldn't be surprised if it's now included as a natural part of CodeRush.
Oh, you think it is?
Yeah, I've got that sort of back of my mind. I'm thinking it was included a little while back, but I couldn't be certain of this because I don't usually uninstall everything and then reinstall. Most of my installs are upgrades, and therefore they leave the other additional plugins behind. So I wouldn't 100% swear to it, but I'd be like 80% sure.
Let me put an S on this, see if this makes any difference. Expressions Lab, interesting. So now this one comes up here, and we've already been on. Interesting, yeah. What is there? I just skipped down and missed it. Okay. So if you search for Expressions Lab, in case you don't have it, put an S on there, for Expressions Lab. Then the #1 link does get it for you, and it's down here. You want the 3.0 version of it. Okay. Unless you're using an old version of CodeRush. All right. So normally I bring up the Expressions Lab, and just I'll do that now. So it's in Diagnostics Expressions Lab, and this is our lab for our diagnostics tool window for looking at the code. And if the default options are set and you move through the code, you can see what's going on here. So here I'm on like an initialized variable, and here I'm down on an element reference expression. So we start with the element reference expression, then we go from there, and we find our way up. So let's see, where are we? Active element there's the element reference expression. It's just the orange brush. Then we call get declaration, and now we're actually into the solid brush, the declaration of orange brush, which is type solid brush. You can see its type is a variable, which means there's an I variable that corresponds to this. And then, let's step down through this. And then, let's see, we are not a type element, but I kind of want to do this for now, because this is if not null, then I want to set a breakpoint just in case we get here. If we're actually on a type itself, what are we going to do? And I'm thinking we're going to do nothing, but we'll see. I'm going to set a breakpoint and understand the context of it first. And then we're going to see, does the declaration have a type? And the answer is yes, it does. And then we can go in and get its type, and now we have a reference to solid brush. Okay, there's solid brush right there. So at this point, I say let's start writing some code so we actually jump somewhere. So one of the things I want to do is I want to drop a marker. So I'm going to go into code markers and I'm going to call drop. Now this has, I'm embarrassed to say this, and I pointed this out before. It's embarrassing, I'm going to say it, and we're going to never speak of this again. 52 overloads. It is 52 overloads. So it kind of, good intentions went bad once we started adding options. We realized, oh, the other overloads we have need to be filled out as well. And then we just got, this was of course before optional parameters, and so we have 52 overloads in this thing. But one of the pieces that we can pass into this is marker style, and then the style of the markers. We'll just say transient. And what transient, or we could say system. I'm going to do system too. So we'll just do that. And I'll tell you the difference between these are the different marker styles that are out there. So standard is a red one, the same kind that you can drop like this. Okay. That's the one I want to do. Let's do TF. So if I do a TF, it drops these blue markers. These are transient markers. If I go somewhere else and hit escape, it takes me right back to them, right there, back to that location. But if I'm on the line and I make any changes, it removes the marker from the stack, even if it's not on the top of the stack. So that's a transient marker. So transient markers might be are something that you might consider. And
I sometimes see those referred in the documentation as soft markers as well.
Right.
Hard markers
exactly.
and soft markers.
Right. And then you've got system markers, which just have a different color. They go with like kind of a lighter gray. And so we'll go ahead and use a system. You can also use system hidden, which will draw no triangle, but it still is on the stack. So it doesn't make the code look up weird. So you might throw system hidden in if you're kind of doing like this sequence where you're going to nav, and through several places, and then they're going to pick them up, and they're just and you just don't want to pollute the code with the image of the marker. You can also use it as well if you were going to put them on temporarily and later take them off. And then the last one is the
system resources as well, because when you return to them, you don't necessarily. Well, I don't know. Do you? When you return to a system hidden, do we still have the color indicator saying that's where we come back to, or do we avoid that?
When you return to a system hidden, I think it jumps to it, but I'm not sure what happens with regard to the locator beacon. I think you don't see the locator beacon.
So if you would, I mean, like we are here, if you're dropping a marker and you're going to expect the user to collect it, it may be better to have a shown one perhaps sometimes. However, if you're going to use it later on inside your own code to return to that point, there's no need to show the user, and there's no need to have this visual
right
as well. So that's a good moment to use that.
I would agree. Also, and then Bookmark is the last style, and that one I would not recommend using because that's used by one particular feature for dropping bookmarks in, and those show up in kind of an orange style. So we're dropping a marker inside at that location. The reason, by the way, there are 52 overloads is because you can drop markers in any text document at any location, so you can pass in coordinates, things like that. But if we don't specify a text document, we don't specify coordinates, it's going to put it right where we are. And markers will restore the view as well, right? So the relative view. So if you're down here and you pick it up, when you come to pick it up, it'll scroll right back down to that same location and show you that. So that's the first step, is we're going to drop a marker. The second step, we want to call, ultimately, this is like not the second step, but we want to go in and we want to code CodeRush.command.execute. And what we want to do is call the Visual Studio command edit.goToDefinition. Like that. And I think it may be case sensitive. I always assume it is. In Tools, Options, Keyboard, you can see all the Visual Studio commands. So if you go in and type in go to definition, there it is right there. Okay? So that's the command. So you can invoke Visual Studio commands, just figure out what they are. And you know, the thing I hate about this is there's no right-click copy. That's the thing that's my
that'd be nice.
That's my complaint number one. And complaint number two is there's no option to pass in parameters. Some of the Visual Studio commands actually accept parameters. I don't think GoToDefinition does, but there are others that do, where I can actually specify like the class name and it will define it. Like the browser, I can specify the class name to it. But you can't find it here, right? So that bugs me. But you can do it inside of a CodeRush plugin. So at any rate, we're going to say GoToDefinition. Command execute, I think, has a second parameter, or second parameter called parameters. And so I don't think there's just one that has only the, well, it does have, there is one that has only its name. So that's one. Okay. So command execute GoToDefinition. And the thing is, though, is we wanted to go to definition on the
solid on the type first, don't we?
Right. We want to put the caret on the type. And so that's what this whole effort of getting to this point is for. So what we want to do now is we want to say CodeRush and then go to the caret dot and then call move to, whoops, on it, and then we want to pass in the type dot, and then we have name. Let's see, name range. So name range and first name range. I'm going to go with this. So name ranges, I talked about this, I think, last time I wanted to say, but the idea here is that certain elements can be distributed across many files. Like a partial class can exist in several files. A partial method can exist in several files. So some kinds of elements may have that ability, and so here in this low-level iType reference expression, we need to add that ability built in. And it's built in there to any type reference expression that's in there. So we have name ranges. We also have first name range, which is the text range that indicates where the element appears in code. This is the first one. If there are multiples, we'll get to the first one. So I'm going to say move to the first name range, and then inside of there, I'm going to just grab the start. And that's going to put the caret in that location, and then we're going to jump. So let's go up here, and then say step through, solid brush, drop a marker, move to this location. There you can see we've got solid value, we've got good values there. And then we're going to call edit.goToDefinition, and now let's run it. And now we're inside solid brush. Okay? So let's hit escape. Now, we jump back here first, and then escape again, and we jump back to the orange brush. Let's do it one more time. Control-Alt-N, hit enter for type declaration. Oops, I just threw that breakpoint. Hit run. Jump to CodeRush, hit escape. Back here, there is the system marker. That's what it looks like right there. It's gray. Hit escape again, and you get a gray locator beacon coming in.
So that's interesting. That's happening because of another CodeRush feature, isn't it? That automatically drops a marker when you do go to definition.
It is. Let's look at that feature. Oops. My options dialog just showed up on the other screen. All right, so that's inside. That feature is inside navigation, drop marker before jump. It's the simplest option page we have. And it's just, this is enabled, which means if we do a jump, like a go-to definition or something like that, we're going to drop a marker so that we can escape to get back. Okay. The problem is that what's happening is that plugin that implements that feature is looking for this command to be executed. And when it sees this command executed, it says, I'm going to drop a marker. So what's happening is we're dropping a marker, a system marker at our one location. Then this command is executing, and we say, well, you know what, let's drop another marker. So we need to kind of stop that from happening.
Yeah.
Let's figure that out. So we type declaration, and actually, you know what? I need to set a breakpoint before. Let's run it. I need to set before we drop the marker. And let's escape. There's that. And escape there. So you know, I actually kind of like the transient marker better because it's kind of bluer. It's a little easier to see than the system marker and the locator beacon. Let me just show you what I mean. I'll do it one more time. Right? I hit breakpoint. Run it. And we'll jump back. So escape, see how that's nice and blue? Easy to see, and this is harder to see right there. So I think we're going to change that. So let's do it one more time. Here we go. Type declaration, and now we'll come in and we're going to say change this to transient. So that'll drop a blue one. And then the other thing I want to do is this. I want to go into CodeRush.markers, and I want to grab the top marker. Oops. Uh-oh. So I want to clear local, top marker, like that, and let's see.
So you're going to grab a reference to the top marker before we drop our own one?
Exactly.
Okay.
No, exactly not.
Would we not grab a reference to it after we've done a go-to definition?
We are going to do that too. So we're going to drop first. And I want to grab a reference. So there's the marker we just dropped. And then I want to see if after we call go to definition, if the top marker is different from the one we just created.
Ah, excellent. Yes. You're thinking ahead, much more so than I.
Yeah, except for I needed to just think ahead a little bit more than you when
Absolutely.
I above that, right?
So for those not quite following, I was assuming that Mark was going to grab just the one that had been put there, shall we say, where we didn't want it to be, that was being put there by the other feature. However, what Mark has obviously realized is that it may not be active anyway.
Right, the feature may be turned off.
If it's turned off and we eradicate our own marker, which is the one we do otherwise, then we've kind of done a big disservice to ourselves. So
exactly. And so, you know, I was actually thinking, should I turn the feature off temporarily? Because there's a lot of ways to do this. And one of the ways is to actually go out, modify the options, trigger the event that the options have been changed, and then the other plugin will go say, oh, okay, I guess I'm not dropping markers anymore. Right? Yeah. It will read those options in. And I was thinking, no, it's just like, so it's just like there's disk access and crazy stuff going on there, and so I didn't like that. And then I realized, oh wait, I can get the top marker right after we drop. So we're saving our marker. In fact, let's rename this to our top marker like this. Our top marker. What do we rename it? Does it still hold its value? Or do we just really think it's null? Let's see what happens when we do this. Yeah. Oh wow, look at that. So this, I think, has happened before to us, all right?
Yeah.
Where we have renamed, refactored in the middle.
You moved the code, though, didn't you?
I'm pretty sure this had a value.
It down. Is this one of those edit and continue bugs?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking it might be. Let's try one more time. Let's see if it has a value now. There's got a value. Let's rename it. Fine, I'll take that name. And then let's step through. And now we're null. This has nailed us before.
Yeah. Although to be fair, to expect the debugger to keep up with the speed we were going at would be Yeah.
All right, so no, but that's really good to know. If you rename a variable, the debugger sets it to null if it's local while you're doing edit and continue. That explains why we've had a number of problems when we've done this in the past, right? Where I'm refactoring on the fly as we're stepping through. Okay, so all right, so here we go. We have top marker is now there. We're doing move to. We're calling execute. And then we get to override. Okay, I think that might be my problem because the edit and continue. But it might not be. Let's see if we can duplicate here, and then we'll set a breakpoint here, and then we'll just run. I'm going to run again. I'm just going to run, and then let's hit escape, hit escape, hit escape. Try one more time. Okay, here we go.
Okay, so from the top.
From the top. All right, and now we're here. Our marker is not equal to the top marker. So our marker, we can look at this, and we can see it's in resources.cs. It's in column 10, line 52. And then the top marker, I think we're going to have to add a watch, and we're going to have to go to the watch. This is kind of a bug in the watch window, and it forces us to explicitly say DevExpress.CodeRush.core. Then we go to CodeRush.markers. There we go. So it just explicitly, it's a bug in the watch window if the class name CodeRush happens to also match a namespace name, and so Visual Studio does that. But basically, so now we can look at this one and we can say, well, what's the deal with this one? Where is it? Same file, but it's in column 11, line 39, so it's way different. Okay, so they're not equal to each other. So what we want to do is we want to come in and we want to go CodeRush.markers.remove, and then we're going to pass in CodeRush.markers.top. Take the top one off. That's the one that was just dropped by this. Okay? Does that make sense, Rory?
Yep. Okay.
All right. Then we're running. Let's clear that breakpoint. And now when we hit escape, we go right back where we're supposed to be. Okay? So, all right, so let's just test this a little bit. I think we're done, essentially, unless somebody wants to open it up inside of the, to see how to open it up inside of the class browser. But I wanted to see what it looked like with a custom type as well. Let's just do this. Let's say we want to have a variable of the current class name, and we'll say his best friend, that, clipboard, and down here, so it's null, and now if I come in here and select jump to type declaration, then we get right to the code. So cool. The definition is there, and go to the definition, yeah, so it works as I'm expecting it to. Do we have any questions, Roy?
We have a single question. I'm not quite sure I fully understand, so hopefully its author will maybe correct me as I go. Essentially the question is, would it be better to, he's talking about the collection of the marker. So obviously we know that there's a plugin, well not a plugin, but a standard part of CodeRush that can be enabled to inject this extra marker. Yeah. What would happen if there are additional plugins that try to do a very similar thing? Should we be continuously searching back through the stack, as it were? So we killed off one marker, should we kill off a second and a third maybe? Yeah, the answer is sure we could do that. We could change this to a while, is what we could do, and that could certainly fix that. In fact, let's try that just to verify that does work like we're expecting. I mean, I'm not fully sure I understand the scenario itself. Well, I should we be doing that? I mean, I know we can, but the answer is yeah. I think the answer is we don't really need to, because so the question is really the concern I think is what if something else was listening to edit.goToDefinition and was also dropping markers? The problem is there's really only one spot there's like two spots you can drop a marker. If you listen to before the command executes, you drop it in the before location, and then if you listen to it afterwards, you can drop it in the end location. It's really not useful to drop it at the end location because you're right there. So it's highly unlikely that another plugin would be installed that would actually do this as well. So the answer is no, you don't really need to do it. However, if you were concerned, it's simply just changing the if to a while. And then the code would look like this. Let's just step through it and verify that that's working the way we're expecting. That's true, because the definition of top obviously changes as you remove items. Yeah. Well, certainly if you remove the top item. And then there we go.
This is not equal to that, and then there we went out on the first one. So yes, you could have other things drop a whole bunch of extra markers. In fact, you can throw that in as a test, and throw a bunch more and verify that still they were all removed.
Excellent.
Okay? And then the escape gets you right back. Are we done? Do we have any other questions?
We have no further questions at this time.
It is like, almost feels like we are, I'm ripping off the viewers by not going in and saying, you know, not getting intense in code. What do you think, Lloyd?
I think it's good as it is. I mean, it's worth noting. I mean, as I said, from the VB.NET perspective, that edit go to definition will bring us to the object browser just as easily. So again, sensible reuse of existing commands rather than trying to navigate around ourselves and reconstruct stuff. Why not take advantage of those functions? That's exactly the way good programming is done.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I can clean this code up, and we can, and I can submit it. For folks that are interested in what it takes to take this to the next level, to go, if you want to go in the object browser. And by the way, I will say that from my perspective, it has usability problems. The usability problems for going to bring up the class browser is it takes, the object browser takes a while to come up. It does. And in fact, let's show you that. Let's go, let's see, what do we have here? Let's go to here. Let's set a breakpoint here. Let's just show that. So come in here, do this prototype declaration. Oh, I also should show how to do the binding, the shortcut binding to this. So you have a single shortcut to do this. And
That's
so
true.
What I want to do here is if type.name equals solid brush, I'm just going to have a slightly different code here. Let's go back up here. Oops. There. And we're inside there. So if that's the case, then I want to instead bring up the object browser and just show you it works. So it's CodeRush command dot execute, and then the command to execute is, and I have a tip for this, by the way, for using this. So once you get the command that you want to use here, right, there's no right-click and copy like I wish there were. But my tip is this: type the full thing in, and if you still see it, then you typed it incorrectly as opposed to making a mistake like that.
Yep.
Okay, and so just type the whole thing in.
The only thing left, so yeah.
Yes, or at least
no, that's true. There
like
are
this.
exceptions to that. Mm-hmm.
But if it's still there, then you can hit copy on it, and then you can come back in and paste it in here like that. And so the thing is we have object browser. Actually, you know what though? I should have brought that down. The object browser is not really what we want. What we want is object browser search.
Yes.
That's what we want. So object browser search, and this we can pass in system.drawing.solidBrush. I'm just going to hard code this for now, okay? Just to show the performance on this. I'm going to hit run. And we're kind of waiting for it to appear is what's going on. So it says it's running. So we'll close it down and we'll do it again without setting any breakpoints. Let's just make sure all these are cleared off. So we won't put these in solid brush. And I think we're still waiting for it to appear. Oh, maybe not. Okay, so I'm going to have 2 up here. That's the strangest thing I've ever seen.
.NET.
Hold on, filter to type. Okay, so check this out. All right, so let's do this. Let's close this down. There's the location right there. Let's go back over here. So breakpoint here, and we'll come back and we'll bring it up one more time. Now we need to do this: CodeRush.command.execute. And it's going to be something like, here's the clipboard. Browser filter There it is, to type. Okay, it's still there, so I'll get that to clipboard, cancel, and then I want to execute that. Command filter, so that will get rid of those two pieces there. All right, let's clear this, run it. So on. All right, so let's do one more time. Close this down, close that as well. All right, so here we go. Without breakpoints. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and we're there. Okay, so
wow.
that's
slow.
I don't like that. So the other I think is better. That's part of what you need to do. The other thing you need to do is get the full class name of it, and that takes a little bit of work, especially for generics. You have to like build the signature up. It's certainly possible to do, but I think what I'll do is I will end this now, and I will just add that code so that people can see it when they download the source as an option. We'll just like add some comment in the code that says if you'd rather do this. And one other thing that you can do too is this. Hold on, this is also good to know. Let's do it one more time. Declaration. You get type there. Then type has if type dot in reference assembly. There it is right there. So if it's in a reference assembly, then we could say, okay, let's bring up the object browser. You could say do that, for example. Otherwise, let's go to definition. You could do that option as well. But the killer thing is here is that where is that type? Wait, why is this false? Type is solid flash in reference to assembly is false. Why is that false? It doesn't make sense to me at all. I'll have to look into that. I'm not sure what's going on. Maybe ask the guys about that. Let's just it doesn't make sense at all. Yeah. Okay, so I'm not sure what's going on with that. Why that's not returning true on that. There may be something else that we need. There may be what I'm guessing. Maybe. Well, I don't know. Let me look into it. I'll find out what's wrong. And I'll put a note as far as why that's not true. Okay, because my expectation certainly is that that would be true. Any other questions, Roy?
No questions, but you were going to show us how to bind this to shortcut.
Shortcut. Oh, you're right. Let's go do that. Okay, so clear this breakpoint, clear this breakpoint.
Maybe a lot of people who've not seen the navigate menu before. It's not one that comes up by default with the code menu and the refactor menu. They are technically the same kind of menu from the smart tag, and you can change the settings so that all three come up either in the context menu or as under the smart tag. There are options to select which ones you want in those two different locations. So if you go looking through the options, you can find those.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. Where is it in refactoring? Here it is, smart tags right there.
Well, that's the default one, but the one directly under that is the one that says which of the menus appears under either context menu or pop-up menu.
Yeah, but I'm not seeing the navigate. Oh, that's jump to. There it is right there.
It's jump to, yes.
That's the jump to, yeah. So you can say show the pop-up menu like that. This is what we're suggesting or saying you can do. And so now if I get my CodeRush refactor key, well, nothing's happening with some metadata. Let's go over here. And now I have my jump tos flowing.
There you go. So you can do that. By default, that's not the way things are set up, and personally, I don't think I'd use that. The hotkey by default, again, is Control-Alt-N, just to bring up the navigate menu by itself. And as we've mentioned, you can bind additional keys to call up and invoke specific navigations rather than bring that menu up.
Let's do that. So I'm in the shortcuts. I've created a folder called My Shortcuts. We'll create a new shortcut inside there. We'll just make it be Control-Alt-T. And so the command is going to be navigate, and the parameters are going to be just the name of that piece we want to, the name of the refactoring provider, or the navigation provider, declaration, like that.
So just as a reminder, the values that we put in parameters are usually the description that we see. Am I right in saying it's technically, I sometimes get this wrong because there are the occasional items who've been renamed, but we keep the provider name internally as what it used to be. So the description at that point does not match the provider name.
Yeah.
So is it it's quite a rare event, to be fair.
It is, and yeah, I'm not sure if we've actually done that or not. But the other thing is, I think we actually have code that makes it that where if we can't find this in the provider name, we then look to see if it's in the display name.
Actually, I think you're absolutely right. I remember Alex Sporkin telling me something very similar to that just in the last week.
Okay.
It does sound
So,
right.
so now if we hit Control-Alt-T, we jump right to it, and then escape to get back.
Yeah.
Okay. So now Control-Alt-T will jump right to it, and then escape to get back. Okay. So that's it. Amanda, I'm gonna pass it over to you, and I would say thanks for
45 minutes
for listening, and that's it.
Okay. All right, everybody. So we have a whole line of webinars that are posted currently throughout the middle of October. We have amazing guest presenters coming up, and of course our DevExpress product training. You can check out all of our webinars at devexpress.com/webinars. And again, if you have a suggestion for Mark and Rory for a future CodeRush feature workshop, you can email it to roryb@devexpress.com, or you can also tweet it. What are your all's tweets while you're typing there, Mark? Your Twitter handles.
Mine is Miller Mark, and Rory's is Rory Beck President.
Yep.
Okay. And then, yes.
Is that it?
No, I thought you were going to start talking.
Oh. I was only going to. All I was going to say is we're going to. I'll get the code should be up and available in about an hour. I think. I just want to clean it up a little bit and just look back and add the code that shows how to build a signature for all class types, including generics, which is a little bit tricky. And then we'll, in case you do want to go ahead and bring the object browser up, and then I'll just pass this off. But the default implementation will be simply what it does now, which is jump right into the metadata. That's what it will do. If it doesn't, or jump to the declaration. Okay.
Okay. Hey, Mark, there is one of our attendees, I said any teasers about what we can expect next week, and then he offered up maybe refactoring, rename with overloads applicable to methods.
I think that's already in the product. My sense is that let's double check that. Maybe I'm wrong on that. So we want to say, well, maybe you're right. Maybe that's so. Let's do this. My proc and string coming in there, and let's create an overload of that, and let's just let's do this passing an integer instead, and then come in and do the rename here. Yeah, it only gets this. So the suggestion I think is if I have overloads, essentially a whole bunch of things with the same name, also grab all of those for the rename. Is that right? That I think is what the suggestion is. So if whoever made that suggestion, if you just confirm that that's what you're looking for, the ability to rename this plus all its overloads that have the same matching name, and then all of their references as well, let me know. That might be a little tricky to do because we need to augment the existing rename, but certainly something we can look into as a possibility. If it turns out it's like too tricky to implement in one of the webinars, we may just say, okay, let's put it as a feature request for the product itself.
He says, yeah, that's it. That's what he's talking about.
I'll look into that and we'll see what we can do. That maybe if it's something we can do, we'll do it next week, I think. That's my expectation right now. And we'll see what happens. Okay?
Okay. And then, I see Rory just answered this, but somebody, Andre asked, can CodeRush help us in XAML?
Yes.
So I threw a couple of links out there. One was to a blog post Mark did a little while back, which was a whole series of training videos that we did, and more specifically I picked one out that referenced WPF and Silverlight help, which of course is XAML based. So hopefully those two will give you a hand. If not, give me a bell, figure out Twitter, email, anything you like, ask us specific questions, and we will get back to you as soon as we can anyway.
Yep, we'll do that. Okay?
Okay.
All right.
All right, everybody. So then the rest of this week, tomorrow, Thursday, September 8th at 10 a.m., DevExpress Analytics with Analytics Evangelist Woody Pewitt. Discover how using DevExpress complete and rich analytics solutions can be built. We'll use the pivot grid to display aggregated data and then show how to visualize the data using charts and gauges. And finally, we will bring it all together with reports. That's tomorrow. And then Friday, September 9th, Sailing the Ocean of Ones and Zeros with Chris Woodruff of Proficient Inc. and Deep Fried Bites. When the development of theory outpaces data, researchers and information workers often find that new ideas cannot be tested for lack of tools or technology. Researchers in active areas of science, in addition to corporate information workers, face a different challenge. Gathering data is so easy and quick that it exceeds our capacity to validate, analyze, visualize, store, and curate the information. This talk addresses this challenge and the opportunity it presents. So that's this Friday, September 9th. And then keep up with us all next week on the DevExpress channel as we cover all the news from Build. Mark, I believe you will be there along with the rest of the DevExpress team. And we'll be reporting. You will?
Yeah, I will be there, which means that we may not do the webinar. It depends on the scheduling. So we'll sometimes in the past we've done webinars right from the floor. So that may be a possibility if we have a good internet connection and it's not crazy noisy. We might do something like that. So
I was going to ask about that.
Yeah. So there's a chance we may not do it next week.
Okay.
But the one other thing I wanted to say is I've not submitted these yet to Amanda, but either today or tomorrow I will be submitting a whole set of new topics for CodeRush. We'll be doing CodeRush training on Tuesdays again, every Tuesday at the same time that this one started at noon Pacific time. We will be doing CodeRush training webinars. So every Tuesday CodeRush training and every Wednesday CodeRush feature. So that's what's going on starting either next Tuesday or the one after that.
We will be quite happy to take questions as well at the end of those. So, even if you think you know most of the things in a given topic, by all means drop by and ask us some questions, point out some areas you'd maybe like to see improvement, all sorts of things. We'll be happy to take feedback from you.
Yeah, we're pretty flexible and pretty enthusiastic about, responding to a different direction as encouraged by people who asking questions. Okay.
There is a question that, sorry to keep dragging this on, but there is a question that's popped up about any plans to port CodeRush to Embarcadero RAD Studio?
No plans right now at this point to do that. The closest thing that we can get in terms of if somebody says like if I want to use CodeRush in Delphi like the latest version, what's the closest chance I have to do that? And the best chance is if there becomes a Visual Studio language service for Delphi where you can use essentially do Delphi development in Visual Studio. And if that were to become the case, I think it would be highly likely that you would see support for that from us within a relatively short period of time. But that has not happened yet to my knowledge. I know there was talk about it a year or two ago, but I've not seen that. I've not heard about that, so I don't think it's here yet. So the answer is no. I think that we would be much closer. It would be much far more likely that we would port this over to iOS than Embarcadero, just in terms of the amount of effort and the anticipated payback from it. I think that we would there would be more of a payback when we went to iOS. So that's kind of where we stand on that right now.
Okay. Thanks, Mark. All right, everybody. So if you want to check out this webinar later, the recorded version will be available this afternoon at tv.devexpress.com. All right. So thanks again to Mark and to Rory. Thank you all for joining us, and thanks for choosing DevExpress.